Hello and welcome to another segment of Legends. Today my guest is a very special person. He's the oldest living Sri Lankan cricketer and he's also represented the country in two sports, hockey and cricket. He's been part of Sri Lankan cricket at crucial junctures of the sport. He's also a leading businessman and has provided employment to several cricketers and sportsmen from other fields. My guest today is Mr. Chandra Schaffter. Welcome to the show, Mr. Schaffter. Mr. Schaffter, I'd like to start off the conversation with an interesting topic that is going on at the moment. A lot of people tend to debate about who's the greatest Sri Lankan batsman. Some people tend to think that it's Kumar Sangakkara, while others tend to argue that it's Aravinda de Silva. You are from a different era altogether, and you would have played against and played with someone called Mahadevan Sathasivam, of whom Sir Gary Sobers said, the greatest batsman ever on earth. And Sir Frank Worrell told him call him as the best batsman he had ever seen. What's your experiences of Mahadevan Sathasivam?
I tend to agree with those statements made by Frank Worrell and Gary Sobers because particularly in the case of Frank Worrell, he played against Sathasivam when he scored 96 on a very bad wicket against, I think it was George Pope and Fred Freer, who were two of the top bowlers who did extremely well on poor conditions where you played on wet wickets. At that time wickets were not covered and you had no guards, you had no chest guards or thigh pads or elbow guards, and in spite of all that Sathasivam scored a brilliant 96 when everybody else around him failed, and that is what made these people realize that he was a cut above the rest.
Is he the greatest among the Sri Lankan batsmen?
I think it's something more than that. I think if you look at his skill, his ability to play virtually any type of bowling, I don't think you'll find anybody else, or I have not seen anybody else who's able to do that. Certainly Aravinda de Silva is a very great batsman, so is Sangakkara and so is Mahela to some extent, but all of them played under totally different conditions, and the real test would be to see them batting in the same conditions that Sathasivam batted, as whether they would have done so well.
What about some of the stories that we hear about Sathasivam, that he used to party till late in the night and next morning he would wake up and go out to bed and score 100?
I think that's also quite true. He used to party till 3-4 in the morning and then go to the Tamil Union, rest for a while and then take a bath and go out at 10 o'clock and score 100.
Let me come to a period where you managed the national cricket team. You had a couple of stints, particularly the stint that you had in 1999 during a very tough time of Sri Lankan cricket, where the national cricket team had failed to go beyond the first round of the World Cup. There were quite a few changes and you were appointed as the manager. And in your very first assignment, Sri Lanka were able to beat the world champions Australia in a tri-nation final, and then to record Sri Lanka's first ever test win against Australia. What did you guys do right to get these things fixed?
Well, I would say those were probably my proudest moments in the game of cricket. The team was shattered after their performance in England in the World Cup, and as you say, many changes were made. Arjuna was dropped as captain, Aravinda as vice captain, and some other senior players were dropped. The selectors were all changed. The cricket committee was dissolved and an interim committee was brought in, and it was they who really asked me to come in and take over the team. I don't know whether I did anything really special. I always feel it is my duty as a manager to look after the welfare of the team, at the same time to make sure that they are properly disciplined. I make it very clear to them what I expect of them, and I never had any problem with them. We played as a team, we worked as a team, and I think we had the desired results.
A fabulous committee was formed as well to run cricket. The chairman of HNB, or the managing director of HNB, Rian Sivijay, was brought in as the chairman of the cricket board.
Yes.
And then you had others like S. Kandakumar, Kushil Gunasekara, Siddharth Vetramani, Michael Tissera,
Yes.
some fine gentlemen. How was it like working with these people?
Absolutely no problem at all because they were gentlemen.
Another high point during your tenure was the Lord's Test match in 2002, where Sri Lanka made 555 for 8 declared and then bowled England out for 275. Then you insert the follow-on. Could have gone on to create history by winning Sri Lanka's first ever Test match at Lord's.
Well, that's a matter for conjecture. We thought about it and then we decided to do what we did because we felt that that would be the best way forward. Maybe in hindsight we would say we should have done it differently, but we did what we thought was the best at that time. It could have turned out to be the wrong decision, but we thought it was the best decision at the time.
The Oval is a special place for all Sri Lankan cricket fans. Sri Lanka's first ever Test match was played at the Oval. First ever Test win came at the Oval. It's also the only ground in Asia where Sir Don Bradman has played. And you were a past president of the Tamil Union. How proud are you guys about these achievements?
Well, we are certainly very proud about the contribution we made to Sri Lanka cricket because until the mid-80s, there was no other test ground. There was no stadium. And even we, in order to stage the inaugural test, had to put up additional buildings. We had to improve our facilities considerably. All that we did for Sri Lanka cricket. And even so, until then, there was really no other ground to stage any representative international matches. Subsequently, of course, the SSC was improved and matches were shared with them. Then the Premadasa Stadium was constructed and matches went to them. Sadly, at the moment, the board and the minister seem to have forgotten that the Tamil Union was the cradle of Sri Lanka's international cricket. And they seem to have been sidelined for reasons best known to the powers that be. And one can only hope that the situation will be remedied.
Bradman also was apparently highly impressed by the scoreboard of the Oval. What exactly did he have to say about the scoreboard?
No, the scoreboard at the Oval was absolutely comprehensive. It's the same scoreboard you see today, and it was copied from Australia. It was copied from the Australian scoreboard. The English scoreboards were not like that.
We were just chatting up about Mahadevan Sathasivam a couple of minutes back, and I don't know whether you realized 3 years ago was his 100th birth anniversary. Do you think that people should have done much more to sort of celebrate in a grand scale?
I think it would have been nice to remember him because he was a great cricketer. He had captained Sri Lanka and he had played with distinction. But normally matters like this are raised by people who knew him well or his family. Hardly any of his family is here anymore, and most of his contemporaries are also no more. So it is likely that the board also never really thought of it.
You were a selector in 1968 and you resigned over certain disagreements. Yeah. I'm talking about the boated tour to England. Yeah. Could you just lead us through as to what was happening and what made you to resign from the post?
I thought the newspapers have given enough publicity to that. No, it's like this. I don't believe that selectors should select themselves. That's not cricket. And when it first happened, I was so taken aback that I was in shock and I didn't know what to do. But I said that if it happens again, I would leave the selection committee. So shortly after that was the day we were selecting the team for the English tour. So the first thing they did was to sack Michael Tissera, who had done so well up till then, and appoint H.I.K. Fernando, who was one of the selectors, as captain. So I voiced my disapproval and I walked away. When I walked away, of course, they continued to select a team, the three of them. But it later transpired that according to the rules of the board, the selection is not valid unless there were 4 selectors. So the selection was invalid. So then they had to appoint another selector and they had another selection. And while that was happening, there were rumblings within the team and people on the sideline who had been left out. They were also very unhappy that they had been left out by people whom they had helped to put into power. So it became quite a unpleasant situation, and the minister finally decided to cancel the tour.
Sri Lanka was supposed to play several first-class matches on that tour.
Yes.
Something like 22 matches, is that right?
Quite a lot. I cannot remember how many, but it was supposed to be a long tour. Gamini Gunusena was in England at the time, and there were one of, I think, Manu Ponnaya and Vijay Mallasekara were also included in the team. They were doing quite well in England. But the basic thing is that so much of ill will and bad blood had been created within the team itself that it seemed as if though the tour was really not going to be a success.
Had that tour taken place, do you think that Sri Lanka would have gained test status much before 1981?
Probably much before 1982 or 81, but no, not immediately, certainly not immediately. But they would have shown the world how good we were and what we were capable of.
The Oval's got one of the finest wickets in the world, and it's got everything for everyone, fast bowlers, spinners and the batsmen. Nowadays we tend to see that the spinners coming into the equation in the first session of a test match as well before lunch. How do you see this trend developing leading into the future?
See, the thing is that in the old days, the groundsman prepared the wicket and nobody else had a say in how the wicket was prepared. Even speaking for the Tamil Union, Mr. K.C. Rasaya was the ground secretary. He prepared the wicket and he wouldn't tolerate anyone coming and telling him what to do. But today things have changed because the home side says what type of a wicket they want. Then someone from the board tells the groundsman and they prepare the wicket in that way. So when you are in that situation, things like what you say are bound to happen, because if they are strong with spinners, they will make a wicket which will suit the spinners. And when they have fast bowlers, as they do in Australia, in Perth, you will have a very fast wicket. So now the situation has changed and wickets are made to suit the home side.
There was a period where the Oval was completely neglected of hosting test matches. How tough was that period, and what did you have to do to get back those international games?
Well, it was tough for us because we depend on test matches to survive. We are there only for cricket, we have hardly anything else. And it was very tough, but by gentle negotiation with the authorities, we finally managed to get matches. It should never have been necessary, because if anybody in the cricket board knew the history of cricket in Sri Lanka, they will know what they owe to the Tamil Union and to the Oval. But unfortunately, history is conveniently forgotten, and so things like this happen. But then sometimes you get board which is a little more considerate than others, and then we got matches back.
There's a lot of development work that's been going on.
A lot of work has been going on, a lot of money has been spent, and all that money is to make available a good ground for Sri Lanka cricket.
You also named some of the stands after some of the greats of the club.
Yes, yes, Mr. Satyakumar Sami, Trifon Mirando, Dr. Ranjan Chanmugam stand, those were named after, and M. Sathasivam, of course.
The Gopalan Trophy, there was quite a bit of interest on that event some time back. What are your memories of Gopalan Trophy?
The Gopalan Trophy was invaluable to us in the 50s and the 60s, because it was the only real international experience that our players had. International teams hardly visited Sri Lanka. England occasionally played here when they were going on their way to Australia, and Australians vice versa. Nobody else was here, and it was only the Gopalan Trophy that we had which gave us some exposure and helped to produce some good players.
Chepauk at Madras has been an historic ground for Sri Lankans over the years.
Yes.
Dulip got a twin hundred there, and the Sri Lankans have been warmly welcomed over the years at Chepauk. Is there a sense of regret that the Sri Lankans do not play at Chepauk anymore?
No, it is the board does not think it is important enough now to send a team. That's all it is. In some ways, it is a mark of ingratitude in my view, because the Madras Cricket Association helped us a great deal to keep our cricket afloat, and now we have got international status, so we think we are too good for them, and so we don't play them. That's all it is.
And Tamil Union has been a amazing place for some of the outstation cricketers. Even Suranga Lakmal, who captained the Test series against South Africa, is a product of Tamil Union. Could you just talk us through helping these underprivileged cricketers from places like down south and Kandy? How's the club managed to do it, and how proud you all are about it?
We are certainly happy and proud that we were able to do that for up and coming cricketers. I don't know whether we still have it, but we had a hostel at the club where these cricketers used to stay, and they were fed and looked after, and they were able to virtually play full-time cricket. So it helped them to come forward quite a bit, whereas if they didn't have those facilities coming from the outstations, they would have not been able to do any of the things that they eventually did.
You have a special bonding with Muthaya Muralidharan. You were the manager when he went on that first tour to England in 1991, his first ever tour with the Sri Lankan side, and also obviously he's a Tamil Union boy. If you can tell us about his early days.
Well, his early days, he came to us as virtually as a schoolboy.
Damien Nadaraja brought him, I'm told.
Pardon?
Damien Nadaraja brought him, I'm told. Another Anthonian.
Yes, but yes, he's Damien Nadaraja. I also had spoken to some of his relatives and got persuaded him to join the Tamil Union, and from there he was selected to go on this tour in 1991, and he was very young at that time, and his father and his uncle brought him to my hotel room in Colombo and virtually handed him over to me and said, "You will have to look after him because he's just a schoolboy." And that's how Murali's cricketing career started.
He didn't play a single game on that tour though.
He played in a few county games. Yes, oh yes, he played in county games, but he didn't play in the test match.
He's taken obviously 800 test wickets, and what do you see as the greatest strength of Muralidharan?
I think it's his determination. I think he doesn't give in.
Another product of Tamil Union is Chandika Thurusingh. Again, the same story. He wasn't even in the first 11 of school team, but by being at the club, he was chosen to represent Sri Lanka under 19, and is probably one of the top coaches at the moment.
Yes, again he came to us, and it was Mr. Depp who brought him to me and said, "This is a very poor boy. He was from one of the schools, I think, in the Vanathamulla area." And he said, "Can you help him?" He brought one or two boys and asked me to do what we can, and we took him in and we helped him. And then I think he went to Ananda, and but he didn't make the team there, I think. But he was selected for the Sri Lankan under 19 team or something like that. Then of course he came with me on the tour of 1991 and did reasonably well. And he did quite well in Test cricket thereafter, but really it is as a coach that he has shone. He has been exceptionally successful in Bangladesh, and I get the feeling he is doing the same in Sri Lanka.
What's your thoughts on T20 cricket? Do you watch a lot of 2020?
That's a controversial thing. I don't watch it. I don't like it. I don't think it's cricket.
But has it helped the game by any means, at least to bring in sponsorships and stuff like that?
Well, it helps the T20 game. It doesn't help Test cricket. It helps T20. It's rich. It generates a lot of money, but I think there is a downside. I think it generates match fixing and a lot of other things which don't get spoken of so much. But I think it's. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think that type of cricket is cricket, because if you want to play Test cricket, You can't be nurtured on T20 cricket.
Is it one reason why we do not see a lot of test matches lasting the distance of 5 days these days?
I think possibly there is a tendency now to score much faster than they did before. In those days, a score of 250 or something was a good score in a test match on the first day of a test match. Nowadays, they score much more than that, and it's probable that it gives a spurt to the batsman to score faster.
It's always good to get the opinions about the old timers about these new things, and I'd like to ask you about one of the things that has been discussed in cricket circles these days about making test cricket into 4 days. Already South Africa have tried that out, playing a game against Zimbabwe. Should that be the future, 4-day test cricket?
Whether you want to play 4-day test cricket or 6-day test cricket is a matter for discussion. But I don't think there's any compelling reason to reduce it to 4 days, because if you look at statistically, a large number of test matches have gone into 5 days, and you've had draws also after 5 days. So there is no, you can also play test cricket in 2 days. I'm saying you have a limited number of overs and then play the test match. But test cricket, I think, should remain as a 5-day game.
So one of the reasons that's been put out is that there's lack of interest among spectators for test cricket, and one of the things that they try to do is to play day-night test matches with the pink ball. What's your thoughts on day-night tests and pink ball cricket?
That's a different thing. That the day-night test
Is it a
match
good thing for the game?
Pardon?
Is it a good thing for the game?
Well, it will help working people to go and watch the match. I mean, that's probably the idea.
Can Tamil Union host the first ever day-night test match in Sri Lanka?
We don't have lights.
But is that something that you can think of probably?
If there is a guarantee of matches, it's possible. But then when we run the gauntlet of some board official not liking the looks of the Tamil Union and not giving us any matches, then we wasted our money.
The national cricket team has struggled quite a bit in the last 2.5 years or so. How do you see the status of the team, and is there any way that they can come out of the current predicament?
I have rather controversial views on that. I believe that there's nothing wrong with our cricketers. What is wrong is with our administration and the sports ministry. I think there's far too much interference in what players do. And nowadays, most of these players come from very poor backgrounds. They do not know what is right and what is wrong. They need counseling and support, mentoring, and they are at the mercy of unscrupulous officials who want them to do what they say. And I think this is why our cricket is affected. I think we've got as good cricketers today as we had 10, 15 years ago. That is my view. I've seen some of them, they're brilliant. But we are trying hard to destroy them, I think.
You've seen a lot of cricket over the years. Having 23 first-class cricket teams, is that the way forward?
I think it's a joke. See, all these are done for the wrong reasons, and naturally our cricket suffers. That's why I say nothing is wrong with our cricket. What is wrong is with our administration. When I started playing, we had only 8 clubs running cricket in Sri Lanka, and they played in the first division, and all the other clubs played in the second division. Then, in order to buy votes and appease your supporters, they increase the premier tournament. Sometimes they have 16 teams, they'll have 12 teams, they keep chopping and changing, which demonstrates the dishonesty of purpose.
Mr. Schaffter, the interprovincial tournament, some people believe that it's the remedy for the solution, and some others tend to think that by having the interprovincial tournament, you'll be diluting the inter-club tournament. What's your views on that?
I certainly think that the way forward for Sri Lanka cricket is provincial cricket. We are one of the few countries in the world which which is controlled by clubs. England is by counties, Australia is by states, South Africa is by states, India is by states. I don't know Pakistan, I can't say anything about it. West Indies is by their islands, and New Zealand is by their states. So that I think is the way forward. There is no problem at all about playing provincial tournaments, and the clubs could play their tournaments within the provinces which they belong to. But of course, you have to make some adjustments in the sense that I think Colombo should be treated as one separate unit and Gampaha as a separate unit and Gaul as a separate unit. But the rest of the country, some of them can combine. For instance, Central Province and Uva can combine and become one unit. You don't need, they won't be necessarily provinces, but it will be more than one province. So, if they do that, they would, the clubs situated within those units can play in a tournament run by that unit, and they can play. Nothing is going to happen to them. This is a bogey which is being put forward without any substance.
Also, to a different topic, Mr. Schaffter, in 1994 you started your own business. Janashakthi Insurance has become a leading company in the country now. You guys support a lot of cricket. What's your advice for young entrepreneurs?
Well, to give advice to entrepreneurs is a difficult thing. I suppose you have to have faith in yourself and have the confidence that if you want to do something, you can get to it as long as you set your mind to it.
It's always nice talking to you, Mr. Schaffter, and thank you for joining us. We wish you all the very best.
Thank you.